The screen opens on a panoramic shot of Islamabad at dusk, the Margala Hills, looming like jagged shadows against a purple sky. This is a city of wide avenues, silent mansions, and the hushed whispers of the elite. It is a city that prides itself on order and security. But on July 20th, 2021, that veneer of sophisticated peace didn't just crack. It shattered in a way that would change Pakistan's social and legal landscape forever. This is the story of Noor Muqaddam. It's a story that sounds like a dark psychological thriller, but every blood-stained detail is chillingly real. It involves a diplomat's daughter, a billionaire's son, a house of horrors, and a nation that finally stood up and said, "No more." To understand the weight of this case, we have to look at the girl at the center of it. Noor Muqaddam was 27 years old. In photos, she has a gentle, luminous face. She was the daughter of Shaukat Muqaddam, Pakistan's former ambassador to South Korea and Kazakhstan. Noor wasn't a political firebrand or a socialite seeking the spotlight. She was an artist. She was an animal lover who spent her time rescuing strays and painting. By all accounts, she was a soft soul, someone who believed that people were inherently good. Then, there was Zahir Jaffer. If Noor represented the quiet dignity of the diplomatic corps, Zahir represented the volatile, unchecked power of the 1%. The Jaffers are one of Pakistan's wealthiest industrial families. With a business empire stretching across construction, agriculture, and technology, Zahir held dual U.S.-Pakistani citizenship. He was educated abroad, moved in the highest social circles, and lived in a sprawling mansion in Sector F7 quarters, one of the most expensive postcodes in the country. But beneath the bespoke suits and the jet-setter lifestyle, there was a dark, spiraling history. Zahir had been deported from the UK years earlier. He had a documented history of substance abuse and extreme aggression. He'd been involved in Therapy Works, a counseling center, not just as a client, but disturbingly, as a supposed counselor in training. This was a man who lived in a world where his family's money acted as a shield, absorbing the impact of every mistake he made, until it didn't. The relationship between Noor and Zahir was long-standing. They were friends, and at one point there was a romantic connection. But by the summer of 2021, Noor had tried to distance herself. Friends later testified that Zahir had become increasingly possessive, obsessive, and unstable. On July 18th, 2 days before the murder, Noor left her home. She told her parents she was going to a friend's house. She ended up at Zahir's mansion. What exactly drew her there remains a subject of debate. Some say he lured her under the guise of a farewell before he left for the US. Others believe she went to settle a dispute. Regardless of why she entered that house, she would never walk out of it alive. For the next 48 hours, the Jaffer residence became a private prison. While the rest of Islamabad went about its business, Noor was being held captive in a room on the upper floor. Zahir had confiscated her phone. He had locked the doors. We know now, through the agonizing reconstruction of the timeline, that Noor didn't go down without a fight. She wasn't just a passive victim. She was a woman fighting for her life in a house full of people who chose to hear nothing. The most damning piece of evidence in this entire saga is the CCTV footage from the house. It's footage that the public eventually saw, and it is the stuff of nightmares. On the afternoon of July 20th, Noor made a break for it. She didn't just try to unlock a door, she jumped. She leaped from a first-floor balcony, crashing onto the hard pavement of the courtyard. Imagine the scene. A young woman, injured from a fall, terrified, sprinting toward the main gate of a fortified mansion. She reaches the guard's cabin. She is begging for help. She is pleading with the domestic staff, the guards, the cook, the gardener, to let her out. And this is where the story turns from a personal tragedy into a societal indictment. The guards did not open the gate. They did not call the police. Instead, they watched. They watched as Zahir Jaffer walked out of the house, calm and predatory. They watched as he grabbed Noor, who was huddled in the guard's booth, and dragged her by her hair back across the courtyard and into the house. The silence of those guards represents the silence of a system that protects the master over the human being. They were more afraid of Zahir's father than they were of the law. Inside the house, the situation turned from captivity to slaughter. Zahir reportedly called his father Zahir Jaffer multiple times during the ordeal. He told him Noor was refusing to listen. His father didn't call the police. He didn't rush to the house. Instead, he called Therapy Works, the private counseling firm. He told them his son was having a breakdown and asked them to go restrain him. By the time the Therapy Works team arrived at the house at roughly 8 p.m., it was too late. Noor Muqaddam had been brutally murdered. She had been tortured and ultimately she was beheaded. When the team entered the room, Zahir Jaffer attacked them, even stabbing one of the medical responders. It was only then that the police were finally called. When the Islamabad police arrived at the scene, they found a sight that seasoned homicide detectives said they had never seen in their careers. The brutality was senseless. It was performative. Zahir was arrested on the spot. He didn't look like a man in the throes of a psychotic break. He looked like a man who believed he was untouchable. The news broke the next morning, and the reaction was instantaneous. Usually in Pakistan, when a wealthy person is involved in a crime, the story stays in the crime section for a day and then fades away as blood money. Settlements, known as dayatar, negotiated behind closed doors. But Noor's family refused to be silenced. Her father, Ambassador Zahir Muqaddam, stood before the cameras with a quiet, devastating resolve. He didn't want money. He didn't want a settlement. He wanted a hanging. The hashtag justice for Noor became a global phenomenon. It wasn't just about one girl. It was about the thousands of girls whose stories never make it to the news. It was about the culture of impunity that allows the sons of the rich to treat women like property. The trial of Zahir Jaffer was a 6-month circus that tested the limits of the Pakistani judicial system. The defense team's strategy was a masterclass in gaslighting. First, they tried the insanity plea. They argued that Zahir was a chronic drug addict who didn't know what he was doing. They tried to have him declared mentally unfit to stand trial. But the prosecution, backed by a team of government psychologists, proved that Zahir was not only sane, but highly calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing when he locked those doors. Then, the defense turned to victim blaming. They tried to suggest that Noor was at the house of her own free will, implying that her presence there somehow justified her fate. They tried to smear her character, a common tactic used to discredit female victims in conservative societies. But the public wasn't having it. The evidence, the CCTV, the DNA on the knife, the blood on Zahir's clothes, was too overwhelming. Perhaps the most chilling part of the trial was the role of Zahir's parents, Zakia and Asmat Jaffer. They were charged with abetment. The prosecution argued that they knew their son was holding a woman captive, and instead of saving her life by calling the police, they tried to clean up the mess by calling a private security team. The parents were eventually acquitted of the most serious charges, a move that sparked outrage, though they remained under intense social scrutiny. On February 24, 2022, the additional sessions judge in Islamabad delivered the verdict. The courtroom was packed. Outside, hundreds waited in the heat. When the judge announced that Zahir Jaffer was sentenced to death, a cheer went up that could be heard blocks away. It was a rare moment of accountability in a system often weighed down by influence and bribery. But the story didn't end with the sentencing. In Pakistan, the legal process is a mountain range of appeals. The case moved to the Islamabad High Court, and later, the death sentence was upheld and even extended to other charges. Zahir Jaffer remains on death row, and while the execution has not yet taken place, the legal precedent has been set. The Noor Muqaddam case changed Pakistan. It led to the passage of the Anti-Rape Investigation and Trial Bill 2021, which aimed to speed up the conviction of sex offenders and protect victims. It forced a conversation about toxic masculinity and the way wealthy families raise their sons. But beyond the laws and the headlines, there is the memory of the girl herself. Noor's room at her parents' house remains exactly as she left it. Her paintings are still on the walls. Her father continues to speak at seminars, turning his grief into a tool for social reform. He often says that he didn't just lose a daughter. He gained a mission to ensure no other father has to stand at a gate, waiting for a girl who is never coming home. As the sun sets over Sector F7 today, the Jaffer mansion stands as a grim monument to a night of unfathomable cruelty. It serves as a reminder that the most dangerous monsters aren't hiding in the shadows of the slums. Sometimes they are sitting in the air-conditioned parlors of the elite, protected by guards who won't open the gate, and parents who won't pick up the phone. Noor Muqaddam's name is now synonymous with a movement. It is a reminder that justice, though slow and painful, can sometimes find its way even into the most fortified of mansions. The nation was stunned, yes, but in that stunning, it woke up. And that, perhaps, is the only light in this incredibly dark story.